Welcome to Hardline Outdoors Season 1. On this week's episode, we're going to cover the early goose hunting season here in Wisconsin. Early goose season runs from September 1st through September 15th with a daily bag limit of 5 birds. During the early season, success can be sporadic as the birds tend to move from field to field following where the feed is. On opening day, we hit a winter wheat field just outside of Waupun, Wisconsin, where we had limited success. Weather played a major factor that morning. We knew we had a front coming in, but we thought we could beat it before it moved in that morning. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case. We were able to get 4 birds early in the morning, but later on that day, the rain really came in and really started to downpour. So we decided to pack it up and go scout an area where we had saw birds earlier that morning. We talked to the farmer, got permission to hunt it, and luckily we were able to get in there the very next morning. September the 6th, we're out here in a wheat field just south of Waupun, about 60 degrees. We are setting up right now, got about 30 minutes before opening time. We've been seeing the geese coming out of the Horicon Marsh to the east in the morning and at night. So what we're going to do with our decoy spread is we're going to have 2 different feeder groups, one to the left of us, one to the right, and then we're hoping the geese are going to fly right in between those and land in the middle. We have a little pothole out in front. We've been seeing a couple dozen ducks every night, a couple dozen geese every night. So it's about 45 minutes after opening time. Been seeing flock after flock of mallards. They're just loving the little pothole we have here in the decoy spread. Been flying over all morning. Haven't seen much for geese yet, just 2 small flocks. We had 2 and then we had 4, but nothing coming in close. The sun's rising just off to our left here. The geese should be getting up and moving around within the next half hour to an hour, so we should be getting some action pretty soon here. Alright, we just had our first action in the morning. We had 1 flock of 3 come in, cupping over the decoys, only got 1 out of that first flock. Then about 2 minutes later, had another flock of 2 come in, cupped in real nice, right in front of us about 10 yards away, down both those birds. We're starting to fly now, it should be good the rest of the morning. Kill him! We just got done with the morning hunt. It was a successful morning. We got 5 birds down. Got a nice little setup, got a little pothole of water off to our left. We were scouting this field for a little over a month. Geese in here every day, ducks in here every day. This morning too, just hundreds and hundreds of ducks. As you can see, we had a little bit better success this morning. We were able to get 5 birds on the ground. During the early season, you have to be flexible. You have to move where the birds are moving and adjust your setup accordingly. For the next hunt, we decided to move about 20 miles south, just outside of Beaver Dam. We hit up a winter wheat field, which was freshly picked. We knew there were a lot of birds in the area, and we were in a highly visible spot because we were up on a hill. We were overlooking the Shaw Marsh, and we were hoping to traffic some birds into that area that day.
Heck of a niche here. Here, big as that waterfall.
Kill it. Just had our first flock of the day come in out of the southwest over by Beaver Dam Lake. Coming in pretty high, started calling and flagging pretty early. They were swooping around us a handful of times, but between the comeback calls and the flagging, we were really working them for well over 5 minutes. Just kept coming around, finally got them in close enough. Dropped 4 birds out of that flock. Should be a good morning.
What are those?
As you can see, the gamble paid off. We were able to get down 4 birds early in the morning and a loader later on that day. Now let's get over to Eric Sackett for some early goose hunting tips.
Today we're going to talk about early goose hunting. We're going to talk about 3 things: scouting, setup, and calling. The first thing we're going to talk about is scouting. Scouting is imperative when it comes to being successful at early season goose hunting. You're going to want to find the fields. Around here, we're looking for mainly wheat fields and hay fields. The corn's still standing. They usually don't cut that till middle to end of October, so you're basically hunting wheat fields. First thing you're going to want to do is scout when you're going to be hunting. We scout early in the morning and we scout late at night. We want to find those fields where those birds are and what time they're getting there. Once you find the field, you're going to want to locate where those birds are in the field. We always talk about getting on the X in the field. Once you have identified where that spot is, then you're going to want to hunt that exact spot. Those geese have been there, they're there to feed, and you want to be right where they want to be. So now you've done your homework in the off season, you've scouted the fields and you know where the geese are going. So what do you do when you go out hunting the field? The first thing that we do when we get out to the field in the morning is determine the wind direction. Today the wind direction is out of the west, it's about 10 miles per hour. Geese and ducks will always land into the wind. As you can see the setup we have here, we have a Cabela's Northern Flight blind sitting here. This is a pretty typical setup of what we would do in an early goose hunt. So we'll come out here in the morning, first thing we do is find a good spot to lay our blinds. We're close to that X, so we got our blind just off the X, just to the north side of the X. So we're sitting here, we got our blind here. So early season goose, we try to set our decoys up like they're little family groups. So you can see we got about 15 decoys out here. Got a group of, a few here and a little group here. You don't need a lot of decoys early season. That's a misconception a lot of people think. They think you need to have a lot of decoys. You don't need to have that many. So you got your setup here. We got your layout blind and you got your decoys out here and another little family group here. This setup is very simple to do. It takes us about 20 minutes to set it up. And we know that the wind's coming this way, so our landing zone would be maybe right behind that flock or kind of right in front of the blind. The geese will swing out and they should come right behind the decoys, making it for an easy shoot. So you've done your scouting, you got out to the field early and you're all set up, and now you're just waiting for the geese. A tip that I like to give to people is when you're hunting earlier in the season, you don't want to do a lot of calling. You're in a field, you're on the X in the field, those geese want to come here. What we like to do is we'll do maybe a couple honks and a cluck. Just a couple clucks in there just to kind of get the geese excited. What we try to do also is you try to mimic the sounds that those geese make. If the geese are really vocal, then we'll be a little bit more vocal. If they're kind of quiet, then like I said, we'll just do a couple soft clucks and a few honks, and usually that works and it pulls them right in.
We had one last chance to get out for the early goose hunting season, so we decided to go back to the winter wheat field outside of Shaw Marsh. We got a tip from the local farmer that the birds were still moving into that field, so we decided to give it a go and hit that field that night. The sun came out. It was cloudy before, but now it's getting pretty bright out, and our shadows were showing to the right of our blinds. So we're going to kind of put them in line with the sun and our decoy spread. That way we don't really get a shadow casting off of our blinds.
Well, just when we had given up hope, we had a flock of 8 come in. There's about 10 minutes left. Was able to knock down 5 of them. And then about another 5 minutes later, we had a loner come in and we were able to knock him down a couple minutes before close. But yeah, overall good night. We were able to get 6. We got a really good field picked out for the morning. We should get a lot of birds in there. Hopefully the weather cooperates and then just more tomorrow morning.
As you can see, overall we had a very successful early goose hunting season. We were able to get a couple dozen birds on the ground, had a lot of fun, and had a lot of good times out in the field. The three main key factors which helped in our success this season was setup, calling, and scouting. Scouting was our most important tool this season. We had to get out in the truck and spend the necessary time needed to find where the birds were located and get permission from the local hunters. Calling. Calling during the early season can be very minimal. Early in the year, the birds aren't as vocal because they are local resident geese compared to later in the year when larger flocks move down where you need to be more vocal. The final key for our success this season was setup. During the early season, the birds tend to stay in small, local flocks of a couple dozen birds. Therefore, your decoy setup should also mimic the small family groups. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode of Hardline Outdoors. Stay tuned right here at Hardline Outdoors for more episodes and tips in the future.